Just a reorg. Okay. And then the chair, whoever the chair is, they will call the meeting to order, right? Okay. Got it. Mm-hmm. And the vice chair. Just gonna work. No, it's the traffic. Good evening. I will call on planning commissioners to speak on each public item one by one, following staff's presentation. When speaking, please announce your name and speak slowly. Each item will require a motion and a roll call vote. When speaking, please announce your name and speak slowly. Each item will require a motion and a roll call vote. Comments from the public submitted via email will be read up to 3 minutes. Members of the public and applicants will be notified when to speak. Only one comment will be accepted per person, up to 3 minutes. Except applicants may have longer comment periods. I would like to remind everyone to please place your microphones on mute when you are not speaking. A special meeting of the Norwalk Planning Commission is called to order, and Commissioner Navas to present the flag salute, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ruth, roll call, please.
Commissioner Apodaca.
Here.
Commissioner Garcia.
Here.
Commissioner Navas.
Present.
Vice Chair Lopez.
Here.
Chair Barragan.
Present. The first item on the agenda is the reorganization of the Planning Commission for the upcoming year.
So, Chair, this is an item that we continued from the last meeting, and right now would be appropriate time to open up a nomination for the position of chair, and then once that's done, the new chair would open up the nomination for vice chair.
All right. I'll make a nomination for Linda Lopez to be chair.
I'll second.
Will there be any other nominations?
Okay.
Yep, hearing none, you could move forward with the vote.
Okay.
Yeah, you could do the vote, do
Okay.
roll call.
Commissioner Apodaca.
Roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Apodaca.
Aye.
Commissioner Garcia.
Aye.
Commissioner Navas.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Chair Barragan.
Aye.
So you guys can go ahead and switch seats, and we'll switch the tags.
Yeah, we're gonna switch. So we're gonna switch. You come over here. I go over there. I think that's where you can take the chair, right?
Chair Lopez.
Okay, to open the nomination for position of vice chair, commission
Okay.
commission to make a nomination for position of vice chair.
Yes, Chair, I would like to nominate Ms. Apodaca for Vice Chair.
And I'll second that. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a second or any other nomination? To close nomination for position of vice chair. I'm s-
Did we
Roll-
have a second on that?
sorry, I'll second that.
Any more nominations?
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Apodaca.
Aye.
Commissioner Garcia.
Aye.
Commissioner Navas.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Barrigan.
Aye.
Okay, and next are the meeting minutes for the Special Planning Commission meeting on December 13, 2023. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Commissioner Apodaca.
Aye.
Commissioner Garcia.
Aye.
Commissioner Navas.
Aye.
Commissioner Barrigan.
Aye.
Chair Lopez.
Aye. Next on the agenda is a public hearing to consider conditional use permit number 2023-04. Ruth, public notice information, please.
Chair Lopez and members of the Planning Commission. On January the 12th, 28 notices were mailed to property owners and occupants within 500 feet of the subject site, posted on the same date at the city's three designated posting sites and published on the same date. As of this date, no response has been received.
Staff report, please.
Good evening, Chairwoman and members of the Commission. My name is Eric Estrada. I am the planning intern for Community Development Department, and today we have conditional use permit 2023-04. The request is to permit an off-site consumption of to permit the sale of off-site consumption of alcohol within the existing 1,400 square foot convenience store known as Jackson's Food Market. The store presently operates as a Shell service station and car wash with a current Type 20 alcohol license for off-sale consumption of beer and wine. The site is located on 0.60 acres of the southeast corner of Alondra Boulevard and Piuma Avenue. The site is zoned M1 for light manufacturing and has a general plan designation of light industrial. It is surrounded by commercial to the east across the San Gabriel River Freeway, residential to the northwest, and industrial to the southwest. In the immediate area, there's a Del Taco drive-thru restaurant directly west of the site across Piuma Avenue. Further west and to the south, there are various industrial businesses, including several warehouses within the city of Cerritos. To the northwest, there's the I-605 freeway off-ramp, as well as residential neighborhood with no direct vehicular access via Alondra Boulevard or Piuma Avenue. To the east, opposite of the freeway, there's the College Square shopping plaza with various commercial tenants and Cerritos College. The site currently houses a Shell service station and convenience store. It is currently under review with the Planning and Building Safety Commission for exterior and interior improvements, as well as various tentative equipment replacements. Approximately 2 to 4 employees will be used to operate the service station and convenience store. It intends to operate between the hours of 5 a.m. and 11 p.m., Monday through Sunday. Permitted hours for the sale of alcohol are contingent on the conditions of approval. As previously mentioned, the existing store is 1,400 square feet. The submitted plans includes various renovations to the bathrooms, walk-in cooler, sales floor, and other improvements. Alcohol will be kept in multiple locations, one being the aforementioned walk-in cooler, which will hold beer, wine, and other alcoholic beverages. Liquors and spirits will only be held behind the register in the area indicated in red. All consumption is done on-site, off-site. No consumption will be allowed on the property. According to the applicant, Jackson's Food Stores manages and owns several service stations in Southern California, San Diego, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, Idaho, and Utah. Many of the locations that have been acquired by Jackson's chain were already established service stations that were renovated under new branding. This proposed project intends to do the same. This site currently operates as a Shell service station and car wash. Presently, there's established Type 20 liquor license that allows for the sales of beer and wine for off-site consumption. Type 21 will allow for the sale of liquor and spirits for off-site consumption as well. In our analysis, we took into consideration surrounding uses, compatibility, and safety. The sale of alcohol will be ancillary to the existing use. The conditions of approval include limits of when alcohol may be sold, being 1 hour after opening and 30 minutes before close, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10:30 p.m. Maintenance of a surveillance system, restrictions on the sale of single-serve alcohol containers, and requirements for responsible beverage server and ABC licensee training for employees. As for the restrictions on alcohol sales, the sales of beer shall be restricted to a minimum of 6 unit packages. Wine coolers shall be sold in a minimum of 4 unit packages. The sale of liquor and spirits will be restricted to unit sizes of 750 milliliters or greater. In addition, the request complies with zoning code and the general plan's policies related to the industrial land use category. The project encourages economic growth of local businesses and enhancement of a service station, which is important for the creation of a positive image for the city. Per CEQA guidelines, the project will not have any significant impact on the environment per section 15301 under use as an existing facility. Staff recommends approval for the project by adopting resolution number 24-01 to approve conditional use permit number 2023-04, subject to the conditions of approval contained in attachment A. Staff notes that the applicant has some concerns regarding the conditions of approval 9H and 9I. That concludes staff presentation. Staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions. Additionally, the Director of Public Safety is also present.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for staff? If
I do. Currently, I don't know if we can answer this. Maybe you guys can. Currently, at these small mini mart type locations, we've allowed beer and wine. I don't believe we've ever allowed distilled liquor, hard liquor, I'll call it. Does anyone have any recollection of a store this size in the city selling anything but beer and wine?
The only comparable would be like a liquor store. I don't
That's
know
what I'm
offhand
thinking.
if we've done it at a C store with a service station.
Okay, that's my recollection too. I just wasn't sure. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
any other questions?
I think when this was answered, I was going to ask if you guys they're going to sell those tiny miniature bottles, but I thought you said 750 ml and higher, right? So they're only going to sell the big bottles.
Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions?
If I may clarify, so that is what staff's conditioning, but the applicant has identified a concern with how it's conditioned.
So I'll just wait to hear from them what's their concern with us not wanting them to sell small liquor bottles.
Yes, and then also I believe there's a packet before you that also includes proposed revisions with regards to that particular condition, or two conditions.
Thank you. If there's not any other questions, the public hearing is now open. Public testimony will now be heard in the following order: applicant and those in favor.
Hi, Hey, good evening. My name is Steve Rawlings. Thank you for putting me on the agenda this evening. I also want to thank your staff for taking a lot of time to work with me and answering a lot of our questions. Um, for the record, we do concur with the staff's recommendation. There are some modifications I was hoping that you guys would consider, and I have been talking to your fine gentleman with the public safety, and I think we are in agreement on a couple of things. And so hopefully this evening we can kind of maybe craft a little bit slightly different language that would be helpful to our company. Again, I'm Steve Rawlings. I'm a third-party consultant for Jackson's Food Stores. A lot of people don't know who Jackson's are in California. Jackson's is one of the largest operators of gas stations and convenience stores in the western United States. They're based out of Idaho. If you travel through Idaho or Montana or those types of states, you're going to see a lot of Jacksons. I think they have about 400 stores. So this is a very, very large corporation. They're new to California by just a couple of years. They made an acquisition of a company that owned 30 plus stations, and one of those was here in the city of Norwalk. As part of their offering that they like to be able to offer their customers is the opportunity to purchase distilled spirits. But I like to point out to everybody what's really driving the ask is we don't have an interest in being like a liquor store. What we have an interest in doing is being able to sell like the Trulies. We all know Trulies. They make the original Trulies, the original White Claws. Those are malt-based type of beverages. In order to sell the Truly vodka sodas or the Truly margaritas, we call those ready to drink beverages, you have to obtain a Type 21 license. And even though the alcohol by volume in these distilled spirits is about the same as a beer or a wine. I think I put in the package there just to kind of give you a little bit of a comparison that if you bought a bottle of Barefoot wine, which is the most popular wine out of a convenience store, it's 13% alcohol by volume. If you bought a Stone IPA, a pretty popular beer, it's around 8% alcohol by volume. Your mass-produced beers, the Modelo's, the Coors, the Budweisers, they're gonna be around the 4% alcohol by volume. The Truly vodka sodas are about 5%. There's a product made by Cutwater, and I believe it's a margarita, and it goes up to about 12%. So I think that's always important to kind of understand that we're really not trying to be a liquor store. Your public safety folks would not want hard alcohol like a tequila or something like that sold in anything less than a large bottle. Nobody wants to sell those airline size. That's what a liquor store does. We're not necessarily interested in doing that. We don't have any particular issues with that. Any of the bottles would be kept behind the cashier. And I think I showed everybody, it's about a 4-foot wide shelf that's behind there. So it's a pretty limited inventory of product. In fact, it's a little narrower than 4 feet, but for simple math, it's about 4 feet. We dedicate about 4 coolers to the display of beer, wines, the malt liquors, and basically all we would be doing is taking a little bit of the space in those to augment with some different products, such as the Truly vodka sodas and things like that in the refrigerated area. So in working with your public safety group, they seem to be supportive of it, but they were a little bit reluctant to allow us to continue to sell singles of beers. Right now, you could walk into our store and you could buy a single can of Modelo, 16 ounces, and you can walk out of it. And your staff has recommended that if we're granted the privilege of being able to add distilled spirits, that we not be allowed to, sell in quantities anything less than, say, a 6-pack. Although we did have some conversations, and I'll let them speak for themselves, but they seem to be amenable to maybe change that condition to a 3-pack, which is a manufacturer's. Our preference would be to continue to be able to sell, Modelo's as a single. We're not interested in selling the big 40-ounce malt liquors, Schlitz, Colt 45s. So my proposed revision was to allow us to continue to sell singles less than 24 ounces. Like a Stone single is about 22 ounces. Some of the micheladas that we sell are about 22. So that's our ask. That would be our ideal, particular situation. But, we are responsive business folks. I don't think that there's been any issues with our operation there. So I would hope that we could continue to do that. But, we understand that every community has their own, standards and desires, and we're certainly here to be good business citizens. And that was our ask. There is that we get a little flexibility in the conditions to be able to inventory some of our ready to serve beverages in the cooler. Maybe those have to be in, like, say, a 6-pack, which they do sell. And we would like to continue to be able to sell beer and malt beverages as a single. And I think public safety, if that wasn't a request that could be granted, I think public safety would be willing to allow us to sell them in 3-packs, which are made by the manufacturer. We don't do that. Those are the prepackaged, come from the manufacturer. We have a lot of policies and procedures in place. All of our employees go through extensive training. I believe that there are something to the tune of 2,500 employees in the Jackson's company. Lots of policies, procedures, lots of layers of management to ensure that things are done correctly. And I don't think that we've been any type of issue in this community. And I know that many of the other communities that we serve, we certainly haven't been an issue. This is a request that we've made in other cities and have been granted that. I will tell you that all the other major chains, the Chevrons, the AMPMs, are making very similar, because the demand for these ready-to-serve products is really strong right now, and they would like to be able to meet those needs. So, with that, I appreciate your attention and your consideration. And as I've mentioned, I've appreciated working with your staff. They've been nothing but professional and open-minded. And that's our request this evening, is a slight modification that might allow us. Our optimal would be able to sell them as singles. But if there's some compromise on that, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody that's opposed? Okay, you can come up, please. Oh, you can- Okay. If you could just please state your name and your address.
Sure. Full address? Okay.
Yes.
Katrina Fountain, 12019 Millette Street, Norwalk, 90650. Okay. Excuse the sweatsuit. I work from home and I lost track of time. I just had some questions because it did come up earlier, actually, that this seems to be a bit outside of what's usually granted to stores such as this. So I guess, leaning on concern would be what stops all the other ones from getting the same access, like 7-Eleven, all, any convenience store that kind of fits the same model. And I understand they don't necessarily want to sell certain hard liquor. It's more for one specific type of deal, but you still have access to that. And so if someone comes in and changes that sales model, it's allowable. And again, how do you stop other ones from being able to do that same thing? And with their changes or ask in the conditions, it kind of, again, feels like you're getting two asks there. So you kind of get to continue the same thing, get access to extra sales. And again, how do you stop other, like maybe harder liquor stores that can't do that same thing because of their license. How do you kind of reconcile the two, those models? So I
Thank
don't
you.
know if there's an answer, but it's more kind of questions that come up for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Would staff like to answer her question or her concerns?
So one of the purposes of the conditional use permit is so that we can, actively be engaged with the operators on how they manage their product on a regular basis. So with this particular permit request, it's very restrictive and it's very specific, and so we're able to enforce and monitor how they're operating through our public safety group, including code enforcement. And so that gives us more certainty in terms of ensuring that they'll be operating in a manner consistent with their approval. That's number one. Number two is with the conditional use permit process, it's based on location. So the activity and action that the commission might take tonight doesn't necessarily translate into automatically allowing other similar uses the same privilege. So the conditional use permit is site specific and it's unique to that site, and the conditions are tailored for that particular location. So if another similar facility came in and asked us for the same request, we would have to make findings specific to that site and the individual operation and the location and the surrounding properties and the nature of calls for service and requests for service and compatibility with the land uses in that area. So that's how that would work. So it's not an automatic if we take one and approve it, that others can come in and automatically. It's just by nature that we would have to approve that one too. So but those are both really good points. So I'm glad they came up.
Okay, thank you for addressing that. A rebuttal by the applicant regarding her concerns or questions?
Thank you for your comments, by the way. I I do understand that, and I think that your community development director did, articulate it pretty well. These are all on a case by case basis, and you take in many factors. The neighborhood, the concentration levels. There, you can take a look at each individual operator in terms of have there been problems there in the past, and so on and so forth. I will offer this up as a when anybody gets a Type 21 license, they now do have the ability to inventory, the distilled products. And I think that I've emphasized it, and I think that our track record shows it in all of our other stores. We're not interested in becoming a liquor store. That's not what our customers want. That's not our business model. But one thing that you can do with any conditional use permit is you can actually limit the amount of display area that a applicant can utilize for the display of alcoholic beverages. I think in our case, I put on the plan that I wanted 8 square feet of the area behind the cashiers, and I've got like 4 coolers. We might want to ask for a 5th cooler, but I have seen and we have agreed to conditions of approval that place limits on how much we actually can, because obviously nobody wants to hear a guy come up here and say, I don't want to be a liquor store, and then tomorrow, guess what? They become a liquor store. And I would, say this, that is a condition of approval that we can certainly agree to here, because if I say it, I mean it. But that's also another way of, controlling other folks that may, make this same request, that you're not going to be creating a bunch of new liquor stores because you can place a condition on how much of the area can be displayed for alcohol. So, and again, if as I mentioned, we've agreed to that type of condition before. We don't have an issue with it in this particular case, but I think that continues to give some assurances that you're not going to see this bunch of places becoming liquor stores. So, thank you.
Thank you. Staff, were there any public comments in favor that were received prior in this meeting?
And no comments received at all.
Thank you. Is there anyone in attendance who is in favor? Staff, were there any public comments in opposition that were received prior to this meeting?
Chair Lopez, no comments received at all.
Thank you.
Vice Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to provide some context of just a little bit about my responsibility as a director of public safety. As many of you know, my primary responsibility here for the city is to keep the city safe. And so, in making your decision, I want to bring you back and give you some context about why the single sales should be prohibited here in the city of Norwalk. And with me today, I have our neighborhood prosecutor that we work with, Mr. Jim Eckert. He's been asked to be here because he was here in 2022 when I was not, and he was intimately involved in addressing some of the nuisances we've had in the city. I want to bring you back to 2022 over at Mike's Liquor. And so I've asked Mr. Eckert to provide some context about why it's important to really look at some of these CUPs that we're issuing out. And then I'm going to come back to you and provide some further information for you. So, Mr. Eckert.
Thank you. So as you're all aware, obviously when a business comes in and applies for a CUP or does a modification of something, we want to reevaluate or do an initial evaluation of kind of the type of business that they're conducting and see what's best going to suit within our city. We've had many issues with locations that sell for off-site consumption of liquor. Whether they're liquor stores, whether they're markets, it doesn't matter. We've had issues with a lot of them, and we've actually had to come back in, as you may recall, when we dealt with Mike's Liquor back in 2022. That was as a result not only of an amortization period with respect to its lack of a CUP, but also the nuisances that generated around that liquor store, many of which dealt with the alcohol sales there. We do have lots of issues with people who consume alcohol in public, and it is typically people who are purchasing the single bottles, the single cans, as opposed to purchasing the larger size things. And so one of the things that we advised the Planning Commission and the City Council back in 2022 was that we would start evaluating and coming up with some kind of standardized conditions that we were intending to impose on all new liquor sales locations, on all locations that come in and seek a modification of their alcohol sales abilities, such as the case here where we're changing from one type of alcohol license to another, as well as all locations that create actual nuisances where we bring them forward for either a suspension, modification, or revocation of an alcohol sales ability, whether it's CUP or otherwise. We were going to come up with some kind of standardized conditions in order to try and abate the issues that the city is often facing. And so the conditions that are being proposed are basically that. These are the sort of standardized conditions that we're looking to impose on all future liquor locations. Now, aside from that, we will obviously do individualized evaluations of these businesses to find things that would be appropriate for that particular location. But the cessation of allowing sales of single container beer, which typically is sold in the 6-packs, and as Mr. Rollins indicated, is now coming out in 3-packs. But stopping the sales of those single packs will have a great impact on decreasing the types of nuisance activities that we've had that surround liquor stores and little quickie marts and things of that nature where alcohol is sold. So that is a big issue for us to be able to stop that sale of that. And it's for the same reason that, and I'm just going to point out specifically the conditions that Mr. Rollins is objecting to. The other is the sale of individualized bottles of distilled spirits that are of a smaller type size. So the condition that's being imposed or being sought to be imposed would be there would be a prohibition of the sale of individual containers of distilled spirits that are smaller than 750 milliliters, which is your standard liquor, right? We're trying to prevent the sale of airplane size bottles, right? We don't want the smaller size things that's easier for people to purchase or even take from the stores, right? We're trying to prevent that type of use going on within the city. And so, again, that's another one under condition 9F that is a significant issue for us. I will say that Mr. Rollins indicated that part of the concern with that was that not only does Jackson's, but other businesses want to sell these ready to serve liquors, right? Like the Trulies, things that are already pre-mixed, which tend to come in smaller containers. This condition is not prohibiting the sale of those. It's just prohibiting the sale of them in individualized containers, right? So if they want to sell a 6-pack of Trulies, they can sell a 6-pack of Trulies, even if they're smaller than 750 milliliters. They just have to be in multi-container things, not individualized ones. With respect to the beer, which is condition 9I, again, he's requesting a modification to prohibit the sales of ones that are over 24 ounces, but otherwise to allow the sale in singles. That's a big issue for us. It just again, it creates a greater likelihood of alcohol consumption outside of those locations, right? It allows people to come in and purchase smaller quantities. So again, someone who doesn't necessarily have as much money, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to buy the one. And those are a lot of the issues that we're dealing with, because we deal with a lot of people who are consuming alcohol in public, and a lot of this happens around the liquor stores. And of course, this then creates other issues, right? We got people who urinate in public, and the trash and debris, and people who are just hanging out, and all of these sort of issues. And that's not to say that that's happening or will happen at Jackson's, but we're trying to create conditions that are going to prevent that type of activity. And we're trying to create conditions that would be imposed across the board. So it's not something that's being focused directly because of some misdeed that happened at Jackson's. Rather, it is a prophylactic sort of regulation that we're looking to impose across the board to prevent us needing to come in and do revocations of conditional use permits, or to declare the businesses nuisances and have to shut them down, as we've done with other locations. And I can't say to my knowledge, I don't think we've had the same issue since we addressed the Mike's Liquor, at least at that location, because of the actions that the Planning Commission and the City Council took. And obviously, if there's any questions or anything that I can answer, I can either do that now or after Ozzy's finished.
I have a question.
Sure.
I remember many years ago, a lot of there's a couple, I should say, came back to ask us to allow them for as mentioned here, the prepackaged. Like Budweiser was coming up with like a two-pack or a 3-pack or something like that. So what is your feelings on those prepackaged type items like that? Are you considering that still a single use?
So no, and that's one of the things. So the actual condition as it reads right now is that they would have to sell them in packages of 6 or more, and they would still have to be in prepackaged containers. That is, they'd have to be as packaged by the manufacturer distributor. So obviously we would not consider a 3-pack to be a single use. But it would be less than the 6 that's being requested. So I do understand that Mr. Rollins is requesting, and this is obviously the first that we've seen it. His request was tonight. I did speak with Mr. Rollins a little bit. I understand that's kind of a, hey, can we do a middle of the road sort of thing? It's more than 1, it's less than 6, but based on what he's indicating and based on what the condition that would still read would be that it would still have to be as packaged by the manufacturer, right? Because what we want to prevent is we don't want somebody being able to come in and go, okay, yeah, I'll just buy 3, but you have them displayed as singles, because then it's very difficult to ensure that they're actually purchasing more than 1, right? If they're obviously packaged by the distributor or manufacturer, that addresses at least part of our issues and part of our concerns. And I mean, I'll let Ozzy talk a little bit about any concerns that we have with respect to the 3-pack as opposed to the 6-pack.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eckert. I share the same sentiments. In all fairness, Mr. Rawlings, I actually had a great conversation with him and another member of our staff. And one of the things that I appreciated from him is his honesty and his ability to collaborate with us. But it still brings me back to the thing that I want to do here in this city, and I think the resident touched on that. Is I want to make sure that the information that we put out as it relates to CUPs with the things that Mr. Eckert mentioned about new businesses, licenses that are requiring modification, and locations that are declared nuisances in the city, is that we have some type of standardization. When we're talking about equity and keeping people safe, you know, that's one of the things that I'm trying to do. And it's in part with, you know, some of the things that I've talked to our council about, trust and cooperation. Those are things that happen incrementally here in the community. And for us to gain voluntary compliance, and I think Mr. Rawlings talked about that, we've got to create relationships with our business community. But I also want to bring you back to what's happening today here in the city. We're having a homeless count. Homelessness is a challenge here in our city. And so in looking to all those things that I try to balance, has nothing to do with Mr. Rawlings or Jackson. I think everybody here wants a community that's going to prosper. But I also am concerned about the people that I get an opportunity to meet every day. That resident who's afraid to pump gas because somebody decides to take a single can and use that in an immediate consumption. Those are the things that I want to remind you that make it a challenging for me as a director to balance the calls for service. We rely on the sheriff's department to deal with the violent crime. And to give you a little perspective, we average a little over 15,000 calls for service. The majority have to do, unfortunately, with challenging our homeless population. And so I just wanted to give you an opportunity to give you some context, some kind of the perspective that I have in these conditions. But I also wanted to make sure that it had nothing to do with Mr. Jackson's business. I'm just trying to create some type of standardization for us to follow.
Thank you. Very great. Thank you for the information. Very helpful. At this point, I declare the public hearing closed. I'd like to bring the discussion back to the Planning Commission. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Thank you
It's
very
okay.
much. I did want to say that, you know, after listening to the conversation, we're certainly amenable to, you know, the conditions and maybe we could look at a revision of the condition to say a 3-pack versus a 6-pack. And since they articulated the fact that we could sell like the Trulies as the condition is read today, that the Trulies could be sold in 6-packs, and if we could sell the beer and malt products in 3-packs, then I would, you know, I think then the only revision we might need to do is revise the one condition to say 3-packs as opposed to 6-packs, and if the other condition allows us to sell like 6-packs of the Trulies, then we're fine with that. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to provide just some clarification. The recommendations that I have before you is what I'd like to have. But I know Mr. Rawlings brought up, I'm not okay with the single sales of those type of items sold here in our city, period. However, I realize the packaging and the marketing that's coming out with 3, provided it's not packaged by them and it's packaged in a set of 3. I'm willing to be okay with that, provided that we have an automatic hearing within 6 months to determine if, in fact, those things are now creating a nuisance.
And I'll just follow up on that. It would be 6 months from when the license from ABC is issued, and not 6 months from today, because it'll take a couple months to get that situated.
And I did speak with Mr. Rollins, and obviously he can speak for himself, but my understanding is if the Planning Commission were to agree to that, he is also acceptable of coming back in 6 months for that review.
Yeah, so for clarification, it'll be 3 and not 6. We're changing that wording. And condition number 9F would be the same.
The wording for 9I would just change literally 6 to 3. All the rest of the wording would be able to remain the same, that it would still need to be packaged by the manufacturer or distributor.
Yeah. And then we would add a condition that included the timing for them to come back for review by the Planning Commission. 6 months from the issuance of the ABC license, the updated ABC license.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks.
Ms. Apodaca, did you have something to say? No? Okay. Okay. At this point, I declare the public hearing closed. I'd like to bring the discussion back to the Planning Commission. Does Planning Commission have any questions or any comments? I'll begin with Commissioner Apodaca.
All right, I'll start. I'll be honest, I was a little concerned about all of this to start my evening, but a lot of information's been given. I'm glad that we had guests here tonight to help us through this. And I'm glad that we have came to maybe a recommendation on the prepackaged amount that can be sold. Definitely against singles. Definitely against the airline sizes. I just anything that people can get enough change out of their pocket and walk away with probably shouldn't have those in their hand, in my opinion. But anyway, so that's all I have. I'll listen to my commissioners, see what they have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Barragan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I agree with Commissioner Apodaca. I had some concerns. I concerns especially as singles like the Cobras, the Hurricane, all those kind of drinks being sold there. But if it's going to be, if the conditions that you are proposing, and most importantly that you are working with public safety and and those powers that be that are going to be able to make changes and meet those bridges when they come along and make the changes that are necessary to do so. And I like the fact that, as we said, just because it's going to be granted, it doesn't mean that it's going to be granted to all other places, but it's a start. And I'm really glad that there is a consensus and that people are working together as we should. And I'm ready to move forward with this.
Thank you. Commissioner Garcia.
Yes, thank you. I have several things to say. First, I'm glad you discussed about the training because I had a question about that when I was reading the report. I didn't have it see the write up about how the training would be for the employees, but I appreciate that. Number two is that I don't support. I actually support what Director Ramos has said about the standardization here in the city of Norwalk. It can't go back and change the ills of the past. All we can do is move forward and correct the past as we move forward. Because this city has been I can't choose the words, but it has been kind of bastardized over the years in terms of how it's the approval process here in the city of Norwalk. I mean, we'll look at it as city. My perspective is Norwalk is you drive around here, it's D- motels, car washes, liquor stores, and those types of things. We need to change that narrative to be more positive and very restrictive with standards. And thus, I do support what Director Ramos is supporting in terms of the alcohol content and no singles and no threes. Needs to be very restrictive. And because the location is considered a high density and with some issues not related to you, just in general. So we need to minimize these kinds of things as best we can. At the same time, don't want to thwart your business, but at the same time, we have to look at the broader picture here in the city of Norwalk and not do what has been done in the past as we move forward. So with that, those are my comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Navas.
Just one question for our public safety director. You said you would be okay with 3, right?
My preference is 6, but like I said, we've had a conversation. They can be packaged they've got to come manufactured in that way. And I've also want to stipulate that it would be an automatic hearing 6 months from the issuance of the license.
That's my only question. Good.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone for coming. thank you for all the great info. I appreciate the director coming and prosecutor, correct? And a lot of great info. And I like that you brought up that your goal is to make the city prosperous, and I think that should be a goal for every resident in the city. So I appreciate that. And that's like one of my goals too, to make improve the city of Norwalk with in every aspect. Thank you, Mr. Rawlings, for coming. I do also agree that I'm against like selling one, beer, one form of alcohol to the public. I'm not really. I don't like that because it does bring, like homeless, unfortunately homeless, and they drink outside of the liquor store or the gas station. But everything else looks good, and I think I'm okay with. I feel like I'm okay with the you know modifying the conditions to containing less than 3 bottles or cans, because that's how they do. The manufacturer doesn't make it like that. Other than that, I'm ready to move forward. Thank you, everybody. And can I have a motion?
All right, I'll move to adopt resolution number 24-01 to approve conditional use permit number 2023-04, subject to the conditions of approval contained in Exhibit A, and consider and find that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to SEQA guidelines, section 15301, existing facilities, with the alteration to 9I, which we're going to allow 3 to be sold only if prepackaged by the manufacturer or distributor, and with an automated hearing to be reviewed in 6 months from the date of ABC issuance. Did I miss anything?
I think you got it all.
We're good?
I will second that motion.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Barragan?
Aye.
Commissioner Garcia?
Aye.
Commissioner Navas?
Aye.
Vice Chair Apodaca?
Aye.
Chair Lopez?
Aye. Thank you. Now for oral communications, is there anyone wishing to speak under oral communications?
We do have an item from staff, but I just wanted to mention that.
I actually had just one question for our public safety director. One question,
Ozzy.
Ozzy. For with the just how's everything going with the laundromat, the one on the corner of Pioneer? Are we having any issues there? The new laundromat, the one next to the Taco Bell.
I don't have it. Well, let me just start off by saying I can't tell you with certainty if we've had any issues, but what I can tell you, that laundromat has not come on my radar. I've had other issues that I'm dealing with here in the city, but I can get back to the planning commission through John Ramirez if you'd like to get further information on that.
Yeah, and then also I was going to inquire about the RNG food basket, if they've been having any issues. I know they were having some trouble.
Yeah, I can comment on that. I will tell you that Corbin and Lindale and that community has been a challenge for us here in the city for sure. And I have been, we're in the process of actually working with Mr. Eckert in abating some of those locations that are creating a nuisance. And that is something that's not acceptable. We identified those people in this particular location. We've actually created 2 search warrants. Unfortunately, some of the people that we've arrested in that community, because of different policy decisions, have been released. But we are in communications with Brian over at RNG and Mr. Cruz, the property owner. We do provide extra patrols in that area. Graffiti has improved. I was just in a meeting earlier today. There was a pursuit, I'm sure you guys saw on TV a couple days ago, where the suspect that originated in the city of Lakewood came through the city here and ended up at Lindy and Corby. And I thought, oh my God, but it was a coincidence that it wasn't related. It just happened to show up that thing. So we are working with them. It's getting better. The graffiti is getting a little better. Our homeless challenges have improved, but we're on top of the source that's creating that nuisance over there, and we hope to get it abated in the next couple months.
Thank you so.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you so much for that info. Um, does staff have any comments?
Yeah, we do have just a short PowerPoint presentation we wanted to share about a recent project that is located within the area near Front Street, our historic Front Street. Carlos, are you giving the presentation, or do you want me to do it?
I believe you're doing the presentation.
Okay. So you can go ahead and jump to the next slide. So this particular project, you may have heard about it, and it's been in the works for several years, actually. This is the block within the city between San Antonio, Firestone, Clarkdale, and Front Street. Right now, there is a vacant bank building on the corner. This is the southeast corner of the intersection of Firestone and San Antonio. And sort of diagonally across the opposite end at Clarkdale and Front Street is the former Norwalk Records building. So the city, up until earlier today, owned lots 3 and 4 that are highlighted in blue. And the city also owns the parking lot across the street at the Goodies, at the Goodies uniform shop. So the city owned 3 and 4, and Prime Store, our development partner, both at Front Street and here at the Civic Center lawn, they purchased the bank building just about 2 years ago, which included lots 1 and 2 highlighted in yellow. And then there's another lot that's not highlighted that is just south of lot number 4. But we took a potential land swap agreement to the council for consideration a couple of months ago. And today, actually, we've been executing the escrow documents, and today the documents were recorded, and we're finalizing just the details of the escrow funds and the closing costs and all that stuff. So tomorrow, effectively, we will have swapped the land with Prime Store, and the city will own the lots 1 and 2, and Prime Store will own lots 3 and 4. So one of the goals of this particular land swap is to enable Prime Store to combine the other lots that they've purchased that are south of lots 3 and 4. So they've purchased, I'll go back to the, I'll go one more. No, the other way, sorry. There we go. So that they could, thank you, Carlos, so that they can combine now what's represented as Area C with Area B. So Prime Store owns Area B, and we switched ownership, so they'll effectively own half of the block for that particular area. And it's really a unique opportunity for the city and for Prime Store. This is an area that's been of great interest for the city council to look at ways to revitalize the area and engage more community activity. I think we've seen over the last couple of years Front Street Fridays and different events that have been occurring in that area to create more of an evening, nighttime life. Prime Store is currently actively recruiting businesses to locate in the Norwalk Record Store, the former Norwalk Record Store, as well as some of the other businesses. And we've been working with them to find either relocating the existing businesses as well as talking to other businesses who might be able to come in and be a part of this new area. This location is part of a broader effort in the heart of Norwalk, which we're bringing to the council next month to discuss the overall land use plan for the heart of Norwalk. And the heart of Norwalk, if you remember, in 2020, 2021, we did a visioning plan, reached out to the community, had an incredible amount of communication and engagement. We actually participated in several of the Front Street Friday events, the lawn events, and the farmers market to get feedback from the community on their vision for the heart of Norwalk. And so we're currently working on the specific plan. So later this year, we'll do a notice of preparation for the EIR for that specific plan once we get the final recommendation from the council on the land use, on the proposed land uses for this new area. So this this project is sort of in the heart of Norwalk, if you will. And one of the goals was to find a way to develop the site in a way that would be a mixed-use project and revitalize the commercial along Front Street, and then also create an opportunity for another project. So if you want to go, Carlos, it's the next slide. So the exchange you see on your monitor facilitates a 76 unit affordable workforce housing and market rate project. It also will facilitate the revitalization of Front Street, and it really furthers the targets in our housing element and in our general plan. So we're looking forward to seeing what's going to happen in this area. And if you go to the next slide, Carlos, you can see this is some of our effort as part of the Heart of Norwalk specific plan. And you can see there's in the rendering, there's a Front Street Friday activity. You can see a stage in the foreground near San Antonio. And if you look to the left, you can see the bank building's gone at the corner, and there's a parking lot. And then if you go a little bit east, there's a 4-story residential building. So this is, a part of the vision for the area, and this fits within a broader vision for the entire Heart of Norwalk. The exciting thing is this is a rendering that we created as part of the Heart of Norwalk effort. The developer has been involved in that visioning and in that plan. And so, Carlos, can you go ahead and go to the very end, the last slide? And so this is some of the documentation of how we're hoping it's going to look and how it's going to interact with the space around it. So instead of the parking lot that's there now, across from Goodies, we'll have a residential project, and we'll have a revitalized Front Street. And what we're finding out is, as part of the evolution of the state's encouragement to have housing developed, we processed this particular project under a new state law called AB 2011. It went into effect last year. And the goal of AB 2011 is to facilitate the development of affordable housing and then also the development of jobs. So it's been an opportunity that is relatively new, and this is the first project that we know of in the area that has taken advantage of this new state law. So to qualify, the projects have to have prevailing wages and meet certain affordable housing targets within the project to be able to move forward in an administrative fashion and have housing built and approved without having to go to a public hearing and without having to go through the public hearing process or CEQA. So it's kind of interesting. So we were able to implement a ministerial expedited approval for this multiple family housing project. So it'll be 76 units. And we determined it was exempt from CEQA. We've been working closely with our city attorney's office on moving this forward because it's brand new. And then, Carlos, if you can go to the last one again. So right now, with the land swap just about finalized, we've already approved from the planning standpoint this particular project. So it didn't have any need to go to planning commission or city council. However, right now the developer is looking at doing the design and engineering for the construction of the project. So I don't think we have a date yet for submittal. Jill, has Steven said anything now? But it's likely this will have some sort of submittal by the end of the calendar year. That developer is also working on the construction drawings for the Civic Center. And so we're looking at those being submitted sometime in early summer and then groundbreaking in November. So it's a lot going on. But you'll start to see the bank building will be demolished. I think the developer has 18 months to demolish the bank building and build the parking lot. So that's going to go by so quick. So we're pretty excited about it. But we wanted to share this with you as the Planning Commission. You have a unique role in the community as stakeholders, advocates, and ambassadors for all these exciting developments that are happening throughout the city, and we take lead from you in terms of how we want to approach these projects and how we want to look at how we refine our code to encourage what you and the community want and discourage what you and the community don't want. So, Jill and I wanted to share that with you. Carlos has been sort of knee deep in the Heart of Norwalk specific plan and the housing element, and so we've been making a lot of progress. And incidentally, we got our housing element certified last year. We might have already gone over this, but I was sick like all of December, so my memory shot. But there's still more than a quarter, so about 30% of the cities in LA County haven't had their housing element certified. So we're far ahead of the curve, and we're doing really well. And this is a project that'll further that goal. But I wanted to share that with you. And if you have any questions about this project or the entertainment district, I'm happy to take them. Or if you have any questions about anything else. But thank you.
Can I see that? Sorry, can I see that other slide where it shows the whole? Where it shows like the okay, so the house.
Yeah.
The parking lot is for the housing, for the apartments.
So that will be a public parking lot that serves both the housing. So it'll serve the housing in the evening, and then it'll serve the area during the daytime. We are currently looking at, right now, the provided parking is a little over one parking space per unit. And we are looking at, we're investigating a couple of different ideas of adding parking in the area. Number one, surface parking lot in the near vicinity. And then number two, we're also conducting research to create a parking district that will enable the business owners. And there's I think there's one or two churches in the area where they can easily rent out or share parking without having to go through a difficult process, so that there's enough parking in the area for the evening activities and all the stuff that we're hoping is going to happen there. One of the items that you can't tell from this particular rendering is the Heart of Norwalk contemplates narrowing Front Street and then doubling the parking along Front Street. So it would be a one-way from San Antonio to Funston, and then you would have angled parking on both sides of the street. So it'll be almost double. We do have, I think, parallel parking on one side, but you would have angled parking on both sides, and it would slow the traffic down. If you've been to Seal Beach, Main Street, Seal Beach, think about that, but only one lane, one way, but you have the angled parking on both sides. So that's some of the strategies that we're looking to incorporate in the area for the parking.
So currently that parking lot is the parking lot for the housing?
Yes, it will provide the primary parking for the housing, yes.
And there's 76 spots there?
I think there's 76 or 77 there, and then there's still parking along the commercial frontage. You can't see, it's behind the buildings that runs along the frontage currently. I don't have a site plan, but
Okay.
And you said that it was already approved, like it didn't have to go through city council or planning, correct?
correct. The land use was approved ministerially or administratively, and even though we did that for the land use, by default, because of the land swap, the city council was involved in the proposal and the site plan and the vision for this area. So it's sort of tied to that land swap. And then there's certain requirements in the land swap for demolition of the building, development of the parking, and then development of the residential.
So was there parking requirements at all, or do we come up with our own on these, or how does this work with this AB 2011?
Yeah, under AB 2011, there's a lot of, it's almost superseding our local jurisdiction's authority. So from under the legislation, it doesn't require parking. Correct. It's not required. Additionally, the bill allows housing to be located along commercial zones overall. So there's the potential for it occurring citywide, as long as they meet certain criteria, primarily being that they provide affordable housing. at certain percentages, and prevailing wages, and then a variety of different objective standards per the state law. So to add to that effort, and as a part of a condition of the housing element, we intend to develop objective standards for our commercial zones to kind of feed into that legislation to encourage, well, to make sure that we can at least, without having to really affect the legislation itself, but see that we want to get the amenities or various frontages or streetscapes that we want to see in these types of developments. So that should be coming, in the near future as well.
Yeah, I just see that possibly being a problem. Kind of a fight against the people wanting to visit the area versus the 76 or probably 150 people living in these buildings minimum, right? So, because there's not just 76 people, there'll be at least 2 per unit and 2 cars per unit at least. So, yeah, okay, I get it, but I'm not in agreement, but thank you.
I just wanted to say I'm happy and congratulations. I know that takes a lot of work, and I know I know all the details when it comes to the intricate details when it comes to do we build, do we not build, and do we take it, do we not take it, and thank you for being proactive and taking it, and then see what happens from here.
Yeah, thank you. And I know that you had unique experience at ICSC last year, and I know Kim, you've done that as well. These projects, they just take many years to get done. And when we did the original agreement for the purchase of the bank, I think that was I think it's been almost 2 years. It's been a while. So so this is something that, working with the council, listening to their vision, what you guys hear from the community, what you want from the community and for the community. That's really this goal. And the Front Street Fridays, I've been to a few of them, and I take pictures and I send them to my buddies, like, hey, look what you're missing. The old cars and the food trucks and the music, and so this area, I know as we continue to focus on it, we'll start to see some really, really interesting stuff there. So thank you.
Is there any consideration for a multi-story parking lot?
Yes.
Okay. I know they're expensive, but probably worth it. I don't know.
Yes, there are conversations going on about that. However, very early in that conversation. But yes, that's definitely on
I
everybody's
saw that
mind.
right away.
Yeah.
I saw that right away.
It just looks so underutilized there. I mean, if it's an issue for us in our community, might be worth it to do it up front than wait.
Yeah, I'll share that with Jesus, because we are working on that. It's just a matter of funding and a matter of design, and then how do you monetize that if to cover the cost, or how do we do that? So definitely, I will pass that along. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a comment and question, I guess. One is that to not repeat the ills of the past, there's 2 things that come to mind always: is traffic circulation and parking. And so I understand the state's desire and requirements to increase housing in the state of California, but the city of Norwalk is one of 1,100 cities in the state of California. We can't solve the housing industry problems in one city. So there needs to be a compromise, and I will tell you that one of the things that I will look at as a standard is the parking. That's not enough parking for the number of units you're going to propose in that jurisdiction. That is to be taken into consideration. And so I throw that out because I'll bring it up when it comes before us. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
So just forget. I don't think this is coming before us. This is done.
Correct. This has already been approved.
Done. This is not coming before planning because of AB 211. So really, all they need to. I mean, I'm just educating myself now. This is so AB 211. They just go to planning department, right? You guys look at the proposed project. You guys are like, yeah, we'll take the housing, approved, stamped. Doesn't need to go before planning commission, and does not need to go before city council either.
Correct. Correct. So
All right.
the unique thing about this project is because we're engaged in a land swap and the partnership with the developer, we've been able to engage in a lot more control, and they've been a good partner. So
Is that another proposed apartment complex next to that? It looks like that's more housing that they might be looking to do. It might.
yeah, that's part of the proposed land use. So this reflects like a portion of that
Yeah.
proposed land use in the future.
But it isn't a project.
No, well, the
It's
one
just-
next to it
It's
isn't.
just a
The
vision.
one next to it, yeah, it's a.
Yeah, it's not a. There's no submitted project. It's just part of the vision. Yeah. Well.
Yeah, you know, but drawing to, you know, I see where they're going with it. No, it's fine. I mean, I get it. 8211.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna educate
Yeah.
myself on it. That's it's the parking situation is insane for us to think that we're gonna be able to share that. Because I mean, if I live in that apartment building, I'm assuming I get priority in those 76 spaces. But it looks good. You know, at least it'll feed the front street. So, and I think putting on, yeah, cool.
Thank you. I like.
Thank you
when
for
you-
moving forward without fear.
A little bit of fear. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that. I like when you guys give us updates on the projects that you guys are working on. I know it's like a lot of hard work and dedication and many years and that you guys put into it, and a lot of sweat and tears into these projects. But I like the updates, and like I like the updates when you guys give us things that are in the future. You know, like kind of excites me. I mean, it does excite me because I feel like the city's improving, and that's what we want to do. We always want to improve. Is there any speaking of revitalization? Is there any like news on that? I think it was a market by Tommy's off of Alondra and Pioneer, like that whole area. I feel like it needs to be revitalized too. I feel like that area always gets like that's like where I live in that area, and Rosa also. I feel like that area always gets forgotten.
We have a vacant property program where we meet with the property owners of various properties that have been identified as, an underutilized site. We have met with the property owner several times. At one point, they had a tenant, but then they kind of fell out of it. So we're meeting again with them in the next few weeks to see what they plan on doing. It sounds like they're interested in actually selling the property, whereas before they just intended on just leasing the spaces. So we'll see if and when they plan on selling the property, and we communicate with them on a regular basis and trying to connect them with developers that are interested and we've heard from that want to develop within the city. So it's an ongoing conversation. We haven't heard anything as of yet for that particular site.
Are we talking about next to the record store, the Elks, or?
No, we're talking
The H Mart, I believe.
Laundry and Pioneer.
Laundra and Pioneer.
No, it's not on here. It's not
No.
on here.
Yeah,
We went off subject.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
form.
Yeah, I was like, where did you go?
No, yeah.
Down south,
By
We're talking about the.
by
on the
Tommy.
south side.
Okay.
But Alondra Maidstone, which is on the opposite end of that corner, is the Chappelle project. They're still moving forward with it. We're just waiting for them to formally submit for construction drawings.
And I know you guys can only do so much, and there's certain. I know a lot of residents sometimes they're like my friend will always say like, well, why don't you guys put this there? Why don't you guys do this? And it's like not that simple. I know there's a lot of like red tape and there's different zoning, and I know you guys try to do your best, so I appreciate it.
And we don't know all the land.
No.
To
Yeah.
remind people that there's people that own those lands and that people that hold on to it and do not want to sell, they want to lease, right?
That's correct.
So, question on this picture while we have it up. They're at the bottom. All these trailers and tractors. This used to be like an office building, and they tore it down overnight, and they just decided to store trailers there. Is this an option for us or somebody, since it's in such close proximity to this Front Street project? Has anyone been in talks with this person down here who underutilizes that property?
Well, so yes and no. for a period of time, this was listed on the market, but I haven't heard anything about it recently. Have you looked at that? We haven't looked at that one, have we?
We've received inquiries about it and a potential industrial building going in, but we haven't formally received anything moving forward beyond just concepts. With regards to the question on the heart, it is part of the heart of Norwalk. I think as of this point, most of the currently zoned industrial areas, which everything west of San Antonio, I think is industrial. I don't believe there's any specific, well, we haven't developed the full criteria for the specific plan itself, but as of right now, I don't believe there's any proposed changes for existing industrial. So I think at that point in time, when as part of the community engagement and when it goes before you, if there is feedback that you would like to see more change, maybe more cleaner industrial uses along that corridor to kind of, complement future development, that would be the time that you could, communicate that with staff.
One last question. So anything that falls into AB 211 moving forward, is it safe to assume you guys are just going to move forward with it without bringing it to Planning Commission and just brief City Council what's happening?
Yeah, I think generally our goal would to make sure that you're aware of what's happening in the community, and this was our first one, so we're kind of learning from that experience. One of the things that we're working on is incorporating it into a similar fashion as the director approval review, where you all get information about it ahead of time, so that you can call us, ask us questions, and if you have ideas or input, we can see how we can incorporate that. That way, you're actually involved before it gets approved. It's just a little bit different because we don't have a lot of discretion, like with the parking and that kind of stuff. But it's still there's still opportunity for feedback that if we have a good development partner, we can work that into it.
But if another project comes similar to this, right, and you guys decide to approve it, it's at your discretion and how much parking they have to install. It would be at your discretion. So you're the one that ultimately decides, or
it's the state.
The same.
Yeah, the state. The state of California precludes the cities from having any requirement of parking for any residential development associated for this type of project. So what we're going to see is the developers reverting back to the market. So, they know that there's, the need for parking. So they will provide parking to the maximum extent that they can, most developers, not all of them, because they know if they don't have parking, they're not going to have renters. So we're going to see that. Right now, what we're seeing in the market is usually like 1.8 to 2.0 spaces per unit. Not for this configuration, but more of your 3-story, like tuck under type of condo project. You're usually going to see like 2 spaces per unit. That's what we had with Chappelle. So these will probably see closer to one per unit or 1.2 per unit. So
okay. Well, I'm glad it's Prime Store. They're good developers, so I trust they're gonna do a good job with it. But yeah, so it looks good.
Yeah. It's unfortunate the state really they're moving more vigorously in the direction of compelling cities to get their housing element certified, comply with state housing law. Beverly Hills had a judgment against them. I think it was last week that they're not allowed to issue permits. No, Beverly Hills and Huntington Beach. This
Right, the states told them they can't process any more permits or building permit or anything, right, until they get their housing
for their housing element. Yeah, that they don't have their housing element certified. They're not complying with their housing state law. They're not moving forward in that direction. So they had a judgment against them for that. I think they're still issuing permits anyway. Based on the article I read, the city of Fullerton was sued for a similar reason and has an agreement. I think they have an agreement with the nonprofit housing advocacy group for certain components to be included in their housing element. And we know the state and Huntington Beach have been involved in a variety of litigation. Gosh, probably for the last 8 or 9 years. I know it's been a while. So yeah, so we're seeing that, and so our ability to have regulations for density and parking, they're becoming less and less part of what we're able to do for housing.
Yeah, I think you said that we're like one of the first, or one of the very few cities that already housing. What is it called? Housing element certified. Housing, yeah, element certified.
Yeah, right now there's about 70% of the cities in the county. So I think there's 88 cities, give or take. So 70% have gotten their housing elements actually approved and certified. So there's still 30%, and this cycle ended in, I think it was 2021, or it starts. So we're going on almost 4 years, and there's still a good chunk of cities who have not gotten their housing elements certified. So it's been very challenging, not only during the pandemic, but because of the legislation that's coming out and the expectations of the state on each city to do their part related to addressing housing in the region. It's a tough one.
You know, housing's a really big issue in the whole state or in the whole country. So, well, thank you for that information. If there's anything else, any other questions from our commissioners? Okay, so there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.